Welcome to the You Hear Big Girls podcast. My name is Luna. Joining us today instead of my regular co-host is Reiku. Welcome, Reiku.
Hi, I had a lot of fun in the Chapter 113 podcast with Mom Taku and Puppet, so I'm really glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm also really glad that we have you back and that now I have a chance to co-host with you. We also brought Puppet back for this podcast, quite unexpectedly. Also very happy to finally be talking with you. Welcome, Puppet.
Hi, thanks for having me back on. I'm excited to talk with you for once as well.
So this month, our guests would have been the guys from the cast of the Titans podcast. Unfortunately, Dart had to sit this one out due to personal circumstances, but we do have Eric, aka Qrowin-Shitposts.
Don't worry about it. I'm the fucking Titans guy.
Yeah.
It's an absolute honor to be on here. I'm really excited.
It's great to finally be talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
So, should be an interesting podcast. I saw someone call it a clash of worlds, so we'll see how that goes. Are you nervous or excited?
Maybe an isekai is a better analogy, but yeah, I'm really, really excited to work with all of you. It's going to be a good podcast, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm very optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see how we'll feel by the end of this one. Okay, so do we want to give some general impressions about the chapter before we dive into the manga discussion?
I did kind of have one sort of broad observation about the chapter that I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This is going to start sounding kind of corkboardy, so bear with me. If we look at the Marley arc, right, that was about 4 volumes long, give or take. And it was like, there were these 2 chapters of build up to the big conflict in Liberia. Those were chapters 99 and chapter 100. And if we think back to like classic Isayama style, he used to do about 4 volumes per arc. That's actually more common than 5 volumes per arc, which is what we expected for, the Marley arc and for this arc. And so just looking at the way that this current arc is going down, 15 is building up to this conflict in Shiganshina, and 116 is probably going to be where that conflict breaks out. And so that puts it exactly 4 volumes after 99 and 100. So it kind of looks like this arc is coming to a conclusion soon and it's about to hit its climax, which kind of makes me think there might be another arc after this. And just because, it's just sort of very much following Isayama's story structure. That was a observation I thought was kind of interesting. Wanted to share.
I think that could make sense and be really cool to get more story like that. But that's going from like chapter 99, 100. Some people think the arc ended at 105. I used to think that. Now I lean more towards 110. And so it really depends on where you think Isayama drew those lines on how long you think this arc's been going on.
Well, I could have a whole debate with you on this, but I don't want to hold it up with me like gushing over Isayama's story structure.
Yeah, the line between arcs, especially with these 2 arcs, was really gray. And there's a lot of variation between what people expect.
Really?
I think it's pretty cleanly 105, personally.
I think it ends right after they are on the blimp.
Isayama does this. It's the 4-act story structure. It's like, there's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. I mean, yeah, that 4 acts. And you can pretty cleanly line them up in both the Marley arc and in this current arc. It fits pretty cleanly, and so has every single arc he's done so far. So I think it's pretty safe to say that 105 was the end of the arc, at least in Isayama's eyes.
Yeah, 105 is what I would agree with in the story context, and it's, like I said, what I had thought for a while. But I thought I had seen some official source say that like 110 was the end of an arc and 111 was the start of one. So if that was an error, then I definitely agree with the blimp in 105 being a much better conclusion.
The wording was very vague on that. And I don't think it was Isayama himself either. It was like an editor.
Yeah, they're moving towards the finale or the final arc or something, and that would make sense to happen right after the first 5 chapters of setup of an arc. Yeah, sort of thing.
Yeah, volume 27 was, that's the one that ended with 110, correct, Puppet?
Yes.
And I think that whole volume was pretty mild, and there wasn't a whole lot happening, and then volume 28 happened, and we got all this action. So it does kind of, like, it's the same arc, but yeah, it's a different pacing, I feel like, and a lot more is happening.
Yeah.
I feel like volume 25 was kind of a transition chapter. Or sorry, volume 26, right? That was where nothing happened. All the slow chapters we got with a lot of Gabi and Falco.
That was 27, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
27, okay. Yeah, so to me that was more like the transition volume. Normally we get transition chapters, but that was a whole volume. And then then finally things were kicked into motion.
And, that's what makes it sort of like an act one in this 4-act story structure. It's setting up ideas, it's introducing things, but not really going. That's kind of part of what I'm getting at.
Well, I wonder if this is going to be the last arc or not, because we're only in the 3rd volume now, I think, of this arc. If we say that 106 was like the last chapter of the Marley arc. So there should be like 2 more volumes left, probably.
Well, we actually asked this in the poll. We asked what chapter people expected the manga will end. The most popular answer was chapter 130.
I'm switching gears to like 138 because I'm on this 8 arc theory now.
What was your initial answer to that question?
I used to think 130 because I thought this was going to be like an extra long arc, but then once I realized that we're currently in Act 3 of a 3-act story structure for this plot, and we're kind of ramping up into Act 4, I'm like, there's no way that this arc is something that Isayama is going to take all the way to chapter 130, and so as a result, I have the theory that he's going to have one more arc planned after this. Though I could be wrong, because there are ways to like stretch like the 4-act story structure into a 6-act story structure, and it's confusing stuff. I'm not going to go too deep into it.
I feel like this arc had a very wrappy up feeling and answering a lot of questions. Like, it's leaning really heavily into answering information on Ymir Fritz, which this chapter may have touched on. And it's been getting into the real grid of the EMA stuff. And they're going back to Shiganshina. That'd be a good place for a final battle. RTS 2.
But I feel like Isayama's story style was like he gives us more answers finally, but then more questions arise. I feel like we're finally getting into that part of the story where he's finally explaining more things, but we don't get as many questions out of it. I feel like he's answering more at this point.
Yeah, I just saw a post about that on the subreddit yesterday, I think it was, because there have been a lot of posts out of this chapter about some big like endgame theories, and this post was essentially commenting that the fact that we have all these endgame theories that seem like they're pretty like on the nose, like we have a lot of information now that makes them feel like theories are going to go by the wayside soon as we get into the wrapping up point.
And I think he said this was going to be the final arc, or at least the final stretch, which with Isayama could mean anything, because he said many times he was going to be done way before this year with the whole manga, but he keeps on going.
Yeah, it's really hard for me too to imagine that the story is going to go much further than Eren and Zeke meeting and doing whatever they're gonna do with the coordinate. Like, it's really hard for me to imagine there's much more story after that, and I feel like we're getting to that point very soon.
Yeah,
agreed.
I personally disagree, but I feel like the stuff in the Marley arc, it set up things involving the big war, like the big war army, like of the United Forces, and also there's stuff like with like the Wall Titans. I feel like maybe less in terms of answering questions, but in terms of action set pieces and interesting concepts to explore dramatically. I think there is, and also just like characters that really need to do things and be developed and stuff like Magath. I think there is another arc worth of stuff to happen, especially if this arc is going to end soon with like a big dramatic thing, and we still haven't gotten Ymir flashbacks.
You are hoping for so much that I think we're never going to get.
I mean, hoping for so much that we're never going to get. I feel like never getting it. I'm not sure that's Isayama's style. He's I don't want to say crowd pleaser, but he's big into Chekhov guns. If he puts a gun on the wall, he very much is the kind of person to use it.
Yeah, there are a handful of things that we still need to cover before the end of the story. Obviously, we need to get into Eren and Historia's true motivations. We've got to answer Annie. We've got to get all the warrior stuff to turn out.
Ymir Fritz, what the heck happened with her?
Yep, Ymir Fritz, final details, that fully revealed. And so I feel like there is room for all that in this arc if you feel it started at 110 or around there. But if you feel it started at 105, there's not really room for all that here.
And so much of this arc is concerned with ideas introduced within the arc itself. I think that's important to like recognize.
And you also mentioned Magath too, and I can totally see him being really prominent in an epilogue, because I think he's going to be very important to the world after our story is over.
The Titan stuff can't be done, because he's so thematically tied to the ideas of Titans.
But there's theories that Titans will end with our story.
This chapter and last chapter are really moving in that direction, that there is a way
Yep, Isayama just introduced the idea of DNA modification to us. That's huge.
And all the stories are converging. Like, we know the warriors are probably all on Paths. We know that the Jaeger bros are going to meet soon, probably.
Converging in like the similar way that it does at the end of like lots of arcs, you know.
Yes, but all the storylines are coming together. All the important stuff is coming together. We finally got like probably a glimpse at Emir Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably learn more about her soon as well. So everything is slowly coming together. We're unraveling more and more things. I really feel like we're moving into the end. If we get another arc after this, I feel like he's dragging things out more than he needs to.
Agree to disagree.
Fine. Let's move on. So, in 3 words, what were your thoughts on the chapter?
Really freaking weird.
Lots of things.
Puppet stole mine.
Yeah, Raika stole mine, I think.
Okay, I've got mine. Fucking paths, comma, Pieck!
Sorry.
I don't know.
Last chapter, we were left off with the question if Levi was alive or not. And then the spoilers dropped. The fandom went crazy. And the Eren fandom especially went crazy.
What did the Eren fandom go crazy for?
Well, the Tumblr part of it, at least.
Oh.
I'm in Discord. I'm in an Eren server. And they were like, no, we're not doing spoilers anymore. Delete the spoiler channel. I'm done. I hate this. I don't want this. I'm done.
Why were Eren fans upset with these leaks?
Yeah.
Because they ship Eren with Levi. So when they thought Levi died.
Okay. I wouldn't generalize that as all Eren fans.
But the Tumblr side of of things. And then, of course, I think that Eren is like this good kid. Then we got the spoilers that he agreed with what Zeke said. But like we didn't see the panels or anything. So they were like in tears over that as well.
Yeah, Tumblr is very different than Reddit. And it throws me off sometimes as a Redditor.
And these leaks were, I feel like they were intentionally misleading.
For the first time in a while, I avoided leaks. And it worked out.
This was a good one to avoid leaks.
Yeah, I'm really glad I did. I think I might do that from now on.
I've tried, man. I've tried. It's so hard to do it when everyone is posting spoilers everywhere you go.
I don't even try, so.
It's better the busier you are and the closer the leaks come out to when chapter releases. Like, oh, I can avoid for a day while I'm at work, sort of thing.
Now I have my friends DMing me like, oh my god, did you read this? Did you see this? I was like,
I had a friend DM me, did you see the spoilers? And I said, no, I'm not going to look at them. And then he responded clearly joking with, oh, here's what happened. And like he was going to make some joke, but I just blocked them just to be safe.
Good job.
Not even going to get close to it.
So, what do you guys think? Is Levi still alive at this point?
Totally alive. There's no way he's dead. There's like a 1% chance that he actually died.
Okay. Is he going to die soon? Yay or nay?
No.
No, I don't think so.
I'm on the fence.
I feel like if he was going to die, he would have just died in the explosion. I don't feel a reason to have him be alive and put a scar on his face just to kill him in 3 chapters or something.
That scar like is a little bit too good from a character design perspective to just be for a corpse.
In the Chapter 113 podcast, I thought Levi was going to die, and that was kind of my prediction, or at least I thought that 114 was going to present some sort of bad situation for Levi to kind of turn the tables, and that's kind of what happened.
I thought that as well, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really happen in the way I expected, and I thought that if it did happen, then Levi would straight up die. There wouldn't be any question of it, but I don't think he's dead currently, and that being the case, I'm not sure if there would be a reason to kill him off in the story anymore. Because he's no longer the thing that's separating Eren from Zeke. Levi's no longer a threat. He's floating in some river with Hanji right now. Like, we don't know what's going on with them.
Here's my take on Levi's place in the story. If you look at like some of the early episodes of Attack on Titan, there's really this kind of very heroic and very sort of simple philosophy behind what a lot of what the Survey Corps is doing. And it really got muddied by what happened from the basement on. And Levi is kind of like that spirit kind of like being maintained. He's sort of the modern representation of what Attack on Titan used to be and what its themes used to stand for.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of how I see it. Yep. And Zeke is doing all this stuff just like, trampling on what in the beginning of the story they're trying to protect for these larger, grander ideals. And even if Zeke thinks that's okay and whatever, Levi is there to act as sort of like an avenger for all of that, for all of the people who lost their lives in this thing that's so much greater than they thought it was. And Levi's view on the world is so simple in comparison to everyone else's.
It is.
He sort of has the reason he never dies and he loses all of his comrades is because I think he plays the role of like a witness, I guess would be a word for it. And so I think he kind of needs to survive till the end of the story, even if it is crippled and he doesn't get to do any more fighting. It kind of just needs to survive and then like be there at the epilogue to maybe like give his thoughts on it or whatever, or just to react.
And there's one point in the story where he is talking, I forget which chapter it is, Puppet, you could probably say it off the top of your head, where Levi's talking about saying, so what I've been doing this whole time is killing Titans. Well, that's what I thought I was doing, but I've actually been killing people.
51, yeah. Good speech.
Of course you could do that. And that kind of makes me feel like if there aren't going to be Titans at the end of this story, then is there even a place for Levi in the epilogue? Or is there a place for him in the world that's going to be left when the story's over?
Well, if he's killing wall Titans.
I actually lean towards there being no epilogue now. I used to think, obviously, there'll be an epilogue chapter. Every story is an epilogue. But the final panel feels like it happened like just after a conflict ended or something.
Oh, to me, it looked like part of the epilogue, actually, the final panel.
I suppose it could be. I kind of pictured the scenery around it, which it doesn't have that. It just has the character. So I suppose it could be like in a home somewhere. Yeah, That's a good call.
And I wanted to say something after Reiko was done talking, but I forgot. What did you say last?
That Levi thought he was killing Titans, but he was killing people.
Right. And if he still has a place in this world, if there's no Titans anymore. That's what I was thinking for Levi. Like, wouldn't it be rather a bittersweet ending if he was still alive in the end, but didn't really have a clear purpose anymore?
We asked a couple questions in our poll about him and his fate. We asked if people thought he was alive, and if so, will his injuries prove to be fatal within the story? Most people said that no, his injuries are not going to be fatal. That was 47% of people. The next question was, if Levi survives, do you think he will be able to participate in future battles? And again, 41% of respondents said no. So most people think that Levi is currently alive, that his wounds will not be fatal, but that he is done fighting. What do you guys think?
That sounds about where I am. Unless the final arc has a time skip.
That's about where I land too. I think I put I'm not sure for the second question about him participating in future battles. I'm pretty confident he won't die like we discussed earlier. I feel like there's no reason to not kill him, except you don't want to make the fandom mad at you if he's not going to participate in future battles. Also, he lost some fingers or possibly even more on his right hand, so it's kind of hard to wield a sword like that. Random theory I just came up with before we started recording. Kind of like just like would be a random cool scenario with no real evidence behind it happening. Would be Levi acts as a distraction so Connie can kill Zeke. That would execute several things at once. It would allow Connie to get his revenge. It would allow Levi to fulfill his promise to get Zeke killed. But also he's kind of letting go of the promise since he's not the one to kill him and he wouldn't see it happen. And then also it's like a parallel and reverse of Levi and Zeke's first fight where everyone distracted Zeke so Levi could go in and kill him. And now Levi's the distraction.
That almost sounds too perfect. I want it to happen.
When you told me that, Puppet, I was like, whoa, that's great.
I'd like something very similar. I'm a little bit unsure if it would go down exactly like that, but like something along those lines could be very cool.
It'll never go down exactly like anyone predicts. That's the beauty of Isayama.
One of my frustrations is actually that we don't really know how intact Levi is. We know he has both of his legs. We know that at least a couple of his fingers are gone, but that's really it. Hanji is aware of whether or not Levi has both of his arms, but we kind of aren't. And I think that actually makes a big difference if he just lost a couple fingers or if he lost his whole arm.
I'm going to go with he just has the scars on his face and lost 2 fingers for now. The only thing I'm a bit more concerned with is if she was lying or not about the effect thunder spears can have on people.
I think she was
That's
lying.
true,
Like
yeah.
how if he's like a scrambled egg on the inside or not at this
It was
point.
pretty obvious lie that she was just doing that to like mess with the truth.
I hope so, yeah.
With what Raikou mentioned about being a little frustrated that Isayama is drawing this out longer, that needs to be like Hanji has looked at him and knows, so why don't we know? I feel like Isayama is doing things like that, like also Eren's mentality and Histori's mentality. He's kind of dragging these plot points out because he's answered most of the major world mysteries and plot points. He has to have some mystery to keep you reading chapter to chapter, and so that's why I feel he's maybe dragging these on a little longer.
I think the injuries we saw were kind of superficial, though, like except for the 2 fingers, but he would still be able to fight with that, although I don't think he can control the 3DM gear with that, right? Because he cannot pull the trigger anymore.
Oh, true. Good call. Yeah.
Kind of hard to do it with only 3 fingers and still have like a good grip.
Well, Irvin did it with 1 arm. I mean, he wasn't like fighting titans with it, but he got up to the top of wall. I think it was Wall Maria.
True.
I think Levi's badass enough.
So then he's going to continue fighting?
He'll
I
do
don't think
something
so.
in the story for sure.
If there's a time skip, then I agree with you. Yes, Levi will fight again, but I really don't think there's going to be another time skip.
Yeah, I sincerely thought that as well. I think I'm kind of on the fence now. I think I answered yes in the poll, like he was going to continue fighting. Just because I thought, well, with those injuries, he can still do something.
Well, that question was actually really close in the poll because 41% said no, Levi's never going to fight again, but 36% said yes, Levi's going to fight again.
It's weird that he's in such good condition because I feel like what's the point of the explosion if it's only superficial and he can still fight? Or what's the point of him staying alive if he can't fight? So it's like either kill him or don't, make him lose like all his limbs or don't. It feels like the explosion just kind of happened and didn't have much of a result, which I feel is where some of the frustration may come from if everything just goes back to normal.
So there's one more poll question I kind of want to bring up, and that was the one about how you feel about characters after this chapter, and then especially in regards to Levi. Actually, most people are more favorable towards him after this chapter. Are you in that same group?
Do anything.
Or...
Yeah, I feel like that's people who are scared that he might die, and they're like, oh my gosh, I love Levi so much, I can't let him die, that they're liking him more.
Yeah, those are people who already rated Levi at a 5 out of 5, but now they rate him as like a 6 out of 5. So
Yeah.
My opinion of him is unchanged because he didn't do anything.
I actually said I have a less favorable opinion of him now.
Ooh.
Yeah. So my reasoning for that is because, Levi is like the OP guy of the manga, but now obviously he's in shambles and he will no longer continue to be, in my opinion, the overpowered character, which was kind of his whole purpose in this manga. To me, at least. So now that he cannot fulfill that role anymore, I'm like, well, you're not that interesting anymore to me.
Yeah, I feel like a big fan of him for his epic action scenes. If he's not going to have any more of those, and he's just kind of an empty shell who's there to be there.
I would say that my reasons for liking Levi are a little different. I like that he's got this cold exterior, but he's actually he's a very caring person. He has a lot of feelings. He just doesn't wear them on his sleeve like Eren does, or Eren did, I should say, because Eren doesn't talk anymore.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like him for different reasons, and also his interaction with different characters. But I never was the biggest Levi fan, and over the last couple of chapters, I've come to like him more, but still not enough to say that I would miss him in the story, personally. Just my opinion. Please don't lynch me.
And looking at the more favorable, less favorable chart, I'm one of only 59 people who viewed Floch more favorably, as opposed to the almost 800 who hated his guts even more.
More?
I kind of want you to explain this, Puppet.
Why?
Well, since I've been a fan of his character, especially even before he became like a main part of the story, I was really glad Isayama brought him back into it and made him a part of the story. And so pretty much every chapter he's in, I like him more. I'm like, yeah, my boy Floch is in another chapter doing stuff. He's important. The only times I like him less is if he does horrible things like beats up Keith or shouts things about nationalism and make Eldia great again, like he did in 105 on the blimp. So if he's there and just being a good boy, I'm very happy with him.
To Floch's credit, we now know he can take a pulse. So he's capable of that.
Well, that's what he said, but we didn't see him.
That's true. We don't know he can do it.
Oh, first aid training, guys. Don't mess with him.
Well, if that's your definition of a good boy, though, what's your definition of a bad boy?
Eren. No, I love Eren. I just meant as a bad boy.
Valid.
But what if Eren's just using Floch?
I mean, that's smart. I don't know. I'd still be by Eren's side. And if Eren kills Floch, I might be a little more sus of the boy.
I think Floch is going to get Floch killed.
But...
Yeah. This is odd. I love Floch, but I also call him out when he does detestable things. And even though he's my good boy and I love him, I know he's going to die, and I'll be happy when he dies because he deserves it.
It would be interesting if Eren is the end of him, though. I would like Eren a little bit more if he ends Floch. I really
It's
would.
like when Kruger pushes Gross over the borderline. This is just
Yes.
Eren showing that he's actually on Mikasa and Armin's side. He just kills Floch right there in front of him.
That would be an amazing parallel, actually, if you look at Gross compared to the things that Floch has said. And then look at Eren Kruger versus our Eren. I mean, that's kind of, I like that.
Yeah, like let's say Floch's about to kill someone close to Eren, like Mikasa or John or someone, and then Eren just kills him. That'd be a great scene.
Yeah, so we kind of already discussed like what Eren's idea was of what he wants to do. Like, okay, we know Zeke wants to euthanize everyone. Floch wants to use the rumbling. Eren seems to be very aware of what Zeke wants to do and how he tends to accomplish it.
Elena probably said so.
Yelena, yeah, she was like, "Yeah, your big brother, Jesus Christ,
God will save the world."
Do you guys think Eren was genuine when he was talking to Zeke?
Oh, hell no.
In part. So I feel like the best, like Pixis said a few chapters ago, the best lie has truths mixed in. I feel like almost every individual point Eren made is true. He thought his father made bad choices. He feels this and that. I feel like all those were truth. But all of them together, the fact that he agrees with Zeke, I feel is a lie.
I'm glad you bring that up, because this was part of the conspiracy theory I was telling him about, like, Eren's motivations. Not really conspiracy theory, just me, like, ranting. But in chapter 115, he said the thing that made him totally change how he looked at things, like what he cited as the thing that made him change how he looked at things, was the flashback he got in chapter 90, which was totally out of the blue and was never elaborated on since then until just now. So I genuinely think whatever like was going through his head in chapter 90 when he got that led him to whatever plan he's doing right now. I think that much is true. And so I've been trying, like, rereading chapter 90, trying to figure out what his plan is.
For me, like, I think it's really telling that Eren really went into that with an advantage. He went into that interaction with Zeke with a huge advantage in knowing that Zeke has issues with Grisha and what Grisha wanted when Zeke was a child. Eren was perfectly equipped to manipulate Zeke with that information too. I mean, if you're trying to get the trust of Zeke, the best way to do it is by saying, yeah, our father was wrong. I don't agree with anything he did.
And one thing I've seen some people bring up is that the flashback Eren talks about is the flashback we see in chapter 62, but he implies he got it in chapter 90 when he kissed Historia's hand. But we actually are the only ones who saw that flashback in 62. Eren's flashback, well, I guess 63 it was. Eren's flashback when he got touched by Rod and Historia in the cave was just some brief glimpses of Grisha and him being turned into a Titan. We see Grisha killing the Reyes children through Rod telling us it. Eren doesn't see that. I mean, you could imply maybe he does, but it's not shown to us. So Eren's expression when he's done seeing that flashback after kissing Historia's hand, when that takes up the whole page, that's the expression of someone who just felt killing children. So I feel like that expression makes a lot more sense with that in mind.
It's a lot more chilling.
And also the idea that Eren feels what he sees in memories brings a whole new angle to the joke that Eren saw himself be conceived.
That was oh my god, I hate you.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
So speaking of Grisha Jaeger, one thing that I think is probably the biggest piece of foreshadowing that Eren is not on Zeke's side is the first line between them is Zeke saying, "You've started to resemble your father, our father a bit," and Eren doesn't respond to that at all, and that bit doesn't like get involved for the rest of the conversation. It was just something that happened at the start. You've started to resemble our father a bit. I think that's starting to say that he's going more along with what Grisha was trying to do than with what Zeke wants to do. And I think that kind of works. He's continuing like the plan of the Attack Titan that Eren Kruger had, that Grisha had, and now he has.
And what's funny about that actually is that in RTS, when Zeke crossed paths with Eren that first time, he said that Eren looked nothing like their father.
And then chapter 90 happened, and now he's starting to look like his father.
Well, it's also not just his facial expressions. It's also that post-time skip, his whole design changed, and Hobo Eren looks a lot like Grisha with the long, dark hair.
That's true.
And the facial hair.
Yeah, he used to take after Carla, but
It's also after he got a bunch of memories, and like in chapter 112, he says like memories are a big part of what makes you who you are, and he got a bunch of Grish's memories.
He has a totally different intensity to his eyes now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Which Eren was pretty intense before, so that's saying something. The whole
Now
new
it's
time.
just terrifying, yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like most of the fandom agrees with us, with 58% saying that he's playing Zeke and doesn't fully agree with his plan.
Yep. And I also think it's pretty telling that Eren was very vague with his language with Zeke. He never said, like, oh yeah, I agree with your euthanization plan, or I'll do exactly what you're saying. He said, I'll end this history that the Titans have given us. I forget what the exact words he used were, but...
Very careful not to say anything specific, so it was harder to catch him in a lie.
Yep.
Well, the closest thing to a straight lie, I think he said, was that to not be born, there's no greater salvation, which that's pretty in line with Zeke's plan. But even that you could extrapolate, and the best way to lie is to never straight up say something that's false, but just kind of dance around it. So I feel like maybe Eren's saying it's better to not be born because the world is cruel, but there is also beauty in it. And
once you're born, you're free. And
yep. And did you see the way Zeke teared up a little bit?
He was so happy to find someone that finally agreed with him, which is going to make it so...
Yep, that Eren understood him.
I'm going to cry when Eren betrays Zeke, because all his life Zeke's been manipulated.
I'm so looking forward to it. You have no idea.
I'm looking forward to it, but it's still going to hurt.
Zeke's been manipulated his whole life. He finally thought he found someone he could confide in his own blood brother, and even he betrays him. It's going to be brutal, even for someone as horrible as Zeke.
Zeke will have been a tool from the beginning to the end.
In more ways than one.
Yep.
Dude, guys, can you freaking imagine Zeke? He it's like at the end of this big fight, and now Zeke's dying, and like he's his regeneration is running out, and he's having a conversation with Pieck, and then Pieck explains to him how much of a fool he's been, and then he's just like, as expected of Pieck, that's exactly right, and then fucking dies.
One more last words. I guess Isayama did kind of meme with Sasha's last words, so who's to say he won't do it again?
I feel like if anyone's last words are going to be a meme, it's Zeke Yeager. The man is a living meme.
I'm just looking forward to his demise, because I still think it's very ironic that his name is Victory.
Oh, that's true.
Well, it could be translated two different ways. There's that translation that goes into victory, or there's people comparing him to Ezekiel, one of the prophets in, I think, the Old Testament.
Yeah. And Ezekiel, in his story, he didn't straight up die. He was taken up into the air in a chariot of fire, and so maybe Zeke had that sort of experience this chapter where he kind of died, but not quite.
Yep.
It's more akin to a resurrection myth kind of thing.
Yeah. Which
and
goes
the clouds
back to
even
Christ
parted
entry.
for him. Like, that was weird.
That was awesome.
That moment reminded me of it was so anime. It reminded me of episode 6 of season 2 when it's stormy, and then as soon as the big moment happens, the light shines through.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking if Isayama had been taking inspiration from the anime when he drew that panel. I did like it. I mean, I think it's nice, to have some dramatic weather circumstances.
I thought it was unironically kind of surreal and mystical and cool.
I think it'll be better in the anime because it is so anime. In the manga, it's kind of weird when I was reading through to see a panel of that. I was like, okay.
I mean, Isayama breaks a lot of stereotypes of the classic shoujo mangas, but he also adheres to a lot of them. And shoujo, shonen. Sorry.
What shoujo manga are you reading? I gotta read this stuff.
The one about Bertold. Have you heard about that?
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I've been caught up in this shoujo manga that was released about Bertold this week, which is a clear knockoff, but somehow got published. Have you heard about it?
I saw some screens that were really weird.
I'm glad my boy Bertold's finally getting some attention, but this isn't the right kind of attention.
It's weird. It's messed up.
So, with all the recent focus on Zeke, how do you feel about him now?
So, actually, the vast majority thinks what his end goal is insane, but they still do really like him as a character, and that's 44% of all votes went to that.
That's what I chose as well.
Because I don't want him to get what he wants at all, but at the same time, I really, really enjoy him.
Yeah.
See, one thing I kind of felt was interesting about his plan is an area of philosophy that I'm not sure I agreed with, but I thought would be really interesting for Attack on Titan to cover is this idea of maybe it is better for all Eldians to die off, and that is justifiable if you look at Eldians not as a separate race, which a lot of people, including the fandoms, see them as, but as just humans with a condition. And that it's just like, it's not, if it's like your life is worse if you're born an Eldian than if there are no Eldians, then when you were born, you have no chance of being born as an Eldian. And everyone is just a human at the end of the day. And Zeke's was kind of similar to that. Not entirely. And so I guess I do have some sympathy with his point of view, though it does seem to be, and I think it is kind of interesting. Maybe there's some kernels of truth in it. I don't think it's as batshit as people say. I do think ultimately it's not a good idea, but I ultimately think it's very interesting, and I think it makes him a very interesting character. And also, I just really, really kind of love him. I love his story. I love his personality. Yeah, he's just been absolutely amazing. And I'm very excited to see what else happens to him.
Ditto.
Yeah, I love his memes, so.
I like his shifty glasses. That's the only thing that I really like.
And those aren't even his, those are Saber's.
They're his now. Saber doesn't need them anymore.
Oh, too soon.
Yeah, technically what Xavier has is Zeke's now, so. I mean, he's got his memories in theory, or at least some of them.
He's got his memories, his Titan, his mission, his glasses.
Not his wife, though. Ayo! Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
That was mean.
We're talking about worst parent earlier. Easily Xavier's wife. I mean, there are some bad parents, but none of them outright killed their child.
I mean, she probably did it because she thought that was the lesser of two evils.
It's still very unsettling, though.
Still, yeah.
That's one thing you just brought up. Even someone who killed her own child thought it was the lesser of two evils. Likely, it's not like she just killed him because she felt like it. There are people all over the moral spectrum of killing people and opposing ideologies, but no one's just outright crazy. There's no villain or even good guy who's just doing it because they're the villain good guy role. Everyone has reasons for what they're doing.
And that's something I really adore about this story. One of my main motivations to keep reading, at least.
I'm actually really excited about Pieck being reintroduced into the story, and also the fact that it kind of looks like she's taking a leadership role in whatever's going on Paradise, because I'm fascinated to hear what her take on this whole thing is, and on all the Eldia, Marley, that kind of stuff is, because she's clearly very definitively on Marley's side. But I also know that she's a very intelligent person who's probably thought this stuff through very carefully and isn't just and she doesn't seem like the kind of person to just work straight off propaganda. And so I'm very curious to hear what her whole take on all of this is. I was talking to Puppet about this earlier, and I think also maybe Raikou. And so I was thinking maybe it's like she was very close with a number of Marleyans, and so it'd be kind of cool if she went onto this speech, like I was talking about earlier, that there isn't ultimately that much of a difference between Marleyans and Eldians. And so even if this is a whole place of Eldian people on Paradise, she doesn't necessarily see them as her people, or that she has a responsibility to protect them or anything like that. I think that'd be, kind of interesting to see from her.
Yeah, I feel like it's very common for people to lump all the Eldians together. Like you were saying earlier, may not be about as much of the race to them as the condition. So I don't feel like they might have a racial loyalty to, these people over here who are my enemy, I'll suddenly be buddy-buddy with them because we're the same race. Yeah, I feel like Pieck has more of and everyone in the story has more of a loyalty to their own nation and their own people.
And Pieck would have just as much of a loyalty to the Marleyans in her own nation as she does to the Eldians in her own nation. Something like that would be absolutely fascinating to see get thrown into this philosophical mix.
Yep, and it would give relevance to Pieck being supposedly so smart, and she's shown us how she thinks critically about situations, and she sees things in ways that other people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, she has Marleyans being kind to her as well.
Exactly. And so she has that unique experience because she's so close with so many Marleyans because of the Panzer unit. She actively considers them some of her best friends from what it looks like.
Consider.
Oh, no, too soon.
I didn't want to be the one to say it this time, so.
It's hard for me to imagine Pieck being like Gabi, and the way Gabi reacted to the Paradise Eldians, being like, "Oh, I'm a good Eldian and you're a bad Eldian." I don't see Pieck.
I don't see Pieck doing that at all.
Oh no.
I feel like that has a lot to do with experience as well as just your own personal character traits, because Reiner started out the same way as Gabi. He was so brainwashed, not just maybe because they were in the same family unit with Karina, but also just Marley as a whole, obviously. And with his experiences, he's now seen more of the wider world and has a broader perspective. And obviously, Gabi's been getting that as well.
About Pieck, I think there's still people who think she's like on Zeke's side and secretly working together with him.
I don't like that personally.
Yeah, me either.
Me neither.
I like the idea of her being a representative of the warrior side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we're all in agreement on that. Yeah. I think she made it very clear, like she was the one who ratted Zeke out. Like, she didn't need to do that,
Are
right?
his grandparents in danger now? Because Levi mentioned that if Zeke gets ratted out...
I would be surprised if they were still alive at this point, to be quite
said,
honest.
Magath is in charge of the military, and maybe if it was the old Marley, they'd immediately kill him, but Magath may... He doesn't seem quite as ruthless towards old...
I mean, no offense, but like, you have Grisha, Zeke, and Eren. Like,
That's
all of
true.
their offspring.
Yeah. I mean, Well, first of all, I'd just like to say I feel like they've lived some pretty long, pretty long lives. So
I was going to say happy.
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm
Happy. What?
not happy, but just like they've lived long lives, and it wouldn't be the worst time to. I'm kidding. That was a joke, by the way.
Is this like some Soylent Green type of thing where like, oh, you've lived long
Yeah.
enough. Let's go. Goodbye. So, and yeah, you guys were also discussing how intelligent Pieck is, but there's some people who are kind of like tilting their heads a little bit at her pointing a gun at Eren.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do with that? What's that going to do?
He'll survive, but it probably
It's not like he cares about taking down a building with people in it, though. Been there, done that.
One thing I did love about that whole scene was that he was telling Gabi, like, yeah, you have to send a radio message, then the warriors will come, and like, Pieck is literally...
he is in frame. Oh, and the way he spaces the bubbles, it gets you to perfectly not look at Pieck, because your eyes go from my body won't move diagonally down to the right to the first speech bubble, and then back to the left, and you completely cross over Pieck's face until you turn the page and boom.
Yeah, I was, after I finished, I didn't even go back and notice it myself. I saw someone on Reddit pointed it out, and I was like, oh, she is there.
I have been waiting for the Warriors to like have a scene like this where it's like, just them doing some like cool spy shit and like stabbing a Jaegerist, and just like, getting information that way or something like that. I've been waiting for them to do that since like chapter 110, basically. And so it's so cool to see that finally happen. And Pieck too, because I've been like wanting Pieck to like get more stuff to do. Because she was always like particularly kind of like, she was always cool, I feel like Pieck's just a really cool character, and this is just kind of adding to that.
She was always cool, but she was always just kind of there, so it's cool to see her step up.
Yeah, and I have to wonder what her goals are here, though, because, I mean, if the goal was to take Eren out, which a lot of people think it is, I feel like the opportunity to do that was before she stabbed the other guy in the throat and
that's a good point.
Alerted Eren to her presence, because now he could probably pull his Warhammer magic and, like, I don't know. I don't think she stands a chance against him at this point because she lost her element of surprise.
There is some bigger plan going on that we don't know about, and it makes sense in the context of that plan.
There has to be. She needs to have some sort of bargaining power here.
I can't believe that at the rate things are going, it's really genuinely looking like the Warriors and the Survey Corps that aren't Jaegerists are about to team up. That's kind of awesome, honestly. I feel like that might genuinely happen.
Yeah, that's where I lean as well.
Like Pieck, Reiner, and Porco team up with Mikasa, Armin, et cetera, et cetera. And there was that guy in chapter 1. There was that guy in chapter 113 who's talking about like, oh, I can't believe Shadis is making us train to fight Titans. We're not going to be fighting any more Titans. And how hilarious would it be if just like within the next couple days, or maybe this is even like the same day or something, just all of the just 4 Titan shifters and Shiganshina.
I would love it. Yeah. Or if like Eren releases all the Wall Titans and sends them to the Jaegerists. That's
That'd
what
be
I hope
fucked.
for. I know it's not going to happen, but
That would
that
be
would be
Zeke
awesome.
awesome.
activates his Titans.
That's
Oh,
totally gonna happen. That's
right.
totally gonna happen at some point.
I dread it so much.
That's more likely.
Dude, that is so
Yeah, well,
obviously
that's-
on the table. Also, speaking of that, just like in terms of like who's going to be teaming up with whom, I'm looking at this scene with Yelena at dinner, and just by his facial expressions and stuff, I think we were finally confirmed that Onyonkapon is not with Yelena and doesn't know about her plans, which makes me happy because he's my boy, and I don't want him to betray Hanji. Because you guys all know I'm shipping trash, and mostly just kind of like Onyonkapon, and I want to root for him.
Yeah, he's weird to me. I felt it was like almost 100% that he was going to turn. I mean, in chapter 110, it was set up so well. Pixis said, you got to mix in truth, and you go to Onyonkapon shuffling cards. Yeah, it must have been a red herring because he hasn't done anything since, and there's been situations he could have, and his facial expressions recently have been, pretty stoic, but not, yeah.
He must have been in the know, right? Of all Yelena's plans.
I don't think so. I don't think he was. I think
But it seemed like everyone at the table, like, except for, like, of course, Pixis and all the other people, but...
I think he figured it out. I think he was told.
Kind of like how Niccolo figured it out without necessarily being in on the plan.
Maybe. I think it would be more interesting if he was on board with it and then met the
Hanji fell in love.
Paradisians.
Oh,
and
he
changed his
fell in
mind.
love with Hanji.
Please.
Oh my god, it would be pretty great. Yeah, it'd be pretty great to see Onyonkapon kick some ass with Hanji.
So this is my motivating factor for swapping. I feel like we would have had more setup of that.
His bond with Hanji has been shown, though.
Hanging out a lot.
Like, she's the only, like, Paradise person that she's been shown to talk, or he's been shown to talk with a lot.
And he clearly has a positive opinion of her.
Just on the topic of Hanji, can we just talk about how bad of a shot all the Jaegerists are? Like, Floch missed Shadis at point blank range.
I feel like he did that one on purpose. That was just like to show I could shoot you.
I agree.
Yeah, probably.
Somebody said that he missed because Shadis got to him with that like absolute roast,
Which was a great roast.
and that like
A very memeable roast.
well, okay, well, let me go back because I go back and forth on whether or not it was on purpose. Let me try to go back to the scene.
I think it was, but the fact that like they jumped in the river and they were standing right next to Hanji and Levi, and they still missed. Like, how deep is that river?
Yeah, that had to have been like a roaring rapids
I
of
was
a
just
river.
about
I mean,
to say.
most rivers, if you just jump into it as your escape, you'll just kind of float to the bottom and they'll shoot
Yeah.
you. Is not very
Is
epic.
it like the Colorado
The
River?
fact-
What is that? What?
Yeah, exactly.
To play devil's advocate, I'd say we don't know for sure that they
Well,
haven't been
true.
hit. We only see their feet go into the water. We haven't seen them come out of the water. I could easily see maybe like Hanji coming out with like a wound in her shoulder or something, or we don't know. So
I'm reading 113 right now.
I guess,
I'm reading
yeah.
113 right now, and so Shada says just like gives the big roast, finishes it, and the next panel is Floch firing, and then it misses, and then the next panel after that is Hanji saying Floch, and Floch says I missed ... And then I thought I'd speed this up by shooting his foot for now.
That's a very common tactic by like villains in movies or even heroes, like to shoot near them just to
show they mean
just
business. Yep.
how in control of the situation I am. Yeah,
I think it could go either way.
I think it was just.
it could. Yeah.
I think it was Floch like displaying like, hey, I can hurt you, but I'm choosing not to, and I'm the one who's in control. And then later on, he does spur on like all the new recruits and tell them to show their loyalty by hurting Shadis.
Oh, we got so off track.
We did, yeah. We were supposed to be talking about Zeke.
I think the next thing that we were supposed to go to was the little girl in the dream sequence.
Well, first the Mpreg Titan.
Oh, yes!
Can't skip over that. Come on.
Mpreg Titan.
One thing about there, at first there was a lot of confusion. Like it seemed like it popped out of nowhere. Maybe Zeke imagined it. Maybe the little girl sent it. But now it's it seems to be the consensus that it's
Yep.
the same Titan that Zeke kind of ripped apart that then twitched and regenerated. One weird thing about it, though, it could just be an accidental inconsistency on Isayama's part, but that Titan had a bunch of intestines and guts when it ripped its stomach open, and Titans aren't supposed to have those. They just kind of have a stomach, and then they belch it up.
Oh, it's that none of them are functional. They have them, and they just don't do anything.
Is that the case? That might be, and that would make more sense.
Rod Rice had all the guts, right?
That's
Remember?
true, but he was also specifically like a really disformed one. This one wasn't stated to be such. But yeah, if they have them, they just don't use them. That makes sense.
One thing I really liked about this whole scene, I guess, is it kind of made more sense of the whole Zeke ripping that Titan to shreds when Levi was in pursuit. Because Zeke doing that, it prevented Levi from actually finishing off that Titan. So Zeke was able to effectively kind of leave something behind to maybe back him up later if he needed it.
Well, I've got two things to say about that. First of all, he ripped it off to get to get ammunition to throw at Levi. That was the main purpose. Second of all, I really don't think that Zeke is the one that this thing is acting on Zeke's orders, because Zeke is convinced he's gonna die, and he's just he's given up, and then he sees the girl, and that's when the Titan shows up.
I agree with that.
And he says afterwards that he doesn't know what happened. So I don't think that Titan was acting on his orders or even on his subconscious will to live. I think that was legit Ymir or the devil or whoever that was saving Zeke because she's got more plans for him.
It's still suspicious that it was one of his Titans, though. I mean, I guess
I think that was the only Titan in the environment. Yeah, what other Titans are going to be on Paradise?
Yep.
Connie's mom.
I feel like that little girl is definitely the girl from the book. I do lean towards it being Ymir Fritz, unlike the theory I brought up earlier. But yeah, I think it's definitely that character.
Yeah. So there were 8, how do we call them? Northern lights, smoke signals, clouds.
Pass.
Paths.
Just paths. So is then the founding Titan, or is Ymir Fritz at the end of where all the paths converge?
The coordinate, I think, is
founding
where they
Titan is the coordinate. The founding Titan is the coordinate.
So she can travel all 8 paths, but
I don't know. It's weird. It's so weird.
Well, she got to Ymir because it seems like Ymir was in that same environment. Our Ymir.
Yeah, I wonder if it's Ymir though. Her clothes look pretty good though for being 2,000 years old.
And this thing molding his body out of the soil, or the sand or whatever. I wonder if Ymir molds the body of every Titan when it gets sent through paths or something like that.
Or anytime someone regenerates, that's what happens. Zeke just got some inside view somehow because he was so close to death in this odd situation.
In the poll we asked this month, which of the following statements regarding Zeke's rebirth do you think are true? The 2 most popular answers were that it's evidence that Ymir Fritz needs Zeke, and then Zeke will see it as divine approval of his plan. 56% say that Ymir needs Zeke, while 46% think that Zeke will see it as divine approval.
I think I actually picked none of those.
I don't think it's going to be divine approval. Zeke might see it that way, I guess, but I don't think that's what it indicates. I do think that Ymir Fritz maybe recognizes that Zeke is necessary, whether his plans tie into that or not. I don't think what Zeke wants really matters.
Yeah.
No. He is there maybe to help Eren.
He's a key.
Get what he wants. He's the key, indeed. So it's not divine approval, like you said, but I do think Zeke will take it that way, and I also voted for that.
In this chapter, we also got our second source of a person saying that it's going to be Eren who's in control when Eren and Zeke activate the coordinate.
Yeah, that's actually the most interesting takeaway from the chapter, because everything up until this chapter was kind of pointing towards Zeke being the one in control.
Yep, Armin had speculated that Eren would be in control because of what happened at the end of Clash of the Titans with Dina. But she was also a mindless Titan, so there was a lot of questions in the air. Well, will it work the same with a Titan that isn't mindless?
Yeah, I always thought Armin's logic was odd there, but I guess it turned out he was correct.
I'm trying to find the question about Zeke's sand body, naked body.
It's right above the question about Zeke's rebirth.
Oh,
I found it.
That was okay. Yeah.
How satisfied were you with the newly sculpted Zeke bod? From the stand was more appealing to get that censorship steam out of the way. And the most people, at 34%, really wanted that censorship steam out of the way so that they could see Zeke's alien ass in full.
I love the distribution of answers for this, honestly, because, I mean, there's spikes at the low end and at the high end for people who liked it,
Yeah.
Zeke's new body, and people who just, the sand was more appealing. And then there's the people in the middle who just don't care. There's almost no 2s and 4s compared to them. It's just fun.
What somebody told me was that the 3 option was the straight option. So,
Yeah, that's why I was looking for the question because I read that.
I chose a 4, I think.
I chose 1. Yeah.
I think I chose 5. I'm sorry.
Have you ever seen anyone as naked in this entire manga?
Ymir.
Grisha.
Yeah, both of them got pretty naked.
But like as many panels, I mean.
That's a good question.
As many panels, no. More view, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely more view. We saw a lot of curvature there. Have we wrapped up all of the Zeke talk for this chapter?
I think so. I'm going through the chapter. Yeah, the final pose where he looks like Eren, his pose, and he says, "We just have to move forward."
Oh, that one. Yeah, we can talk about that real quick.
Because people were speculating that like he woke up as a new person because of that line, because it seems so different from the way he was before. So he wasn't like the real Zeke.
I think it's the same Zeke still.
Yeah, I lean that way.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
I feel like that line just kind of tied in with the theme of the chapter. I mean, it was called Support, which most chapter titles recently could apply to a few different places. I feel this one is most applicable to Zeke's support he gets from Eren. Like I was talking about earlier, Zeke's been manipulated his whole life. He finally found someone he thought he could trust who supports him. And that was the crux of the flashbacks we got from Zeke, needing to find him, then finding him and having a conversation with him. And so I feel that since that stuff just went through his mind before dying, I feel that's why he said that.
Yeah, I think it's to kind of tie into the flashback we saw where Eren commits to Zeke's plan and Zeke returns the favor and says, "Let's keep moving forward." Which
I love how that's become Eren's catchphrase. It feels like it's always been part of Eren because it goes so well with his personality and his driving forces. But the first time that was said was chapter 100. I mean, it was brought up that the Attack Titan always needs to move forward in chapter 88. And Eren adopted that mentality even more than he already had.
Around that time was actually the first time we'd seen Eren talk at length for a long time. So we kind of got to see how much those flashbacks and those memories he acquired have kind of affected him, I think. Because I think Eren's changed a lot in the 4 years.
For sure.
But, I mean, it's always been the theme, right? I think it's just because of the English translation, but it's more the advancing Titan than the Attack Titan, right?
Yeah.
So his Titan is always meant to move forward, and it's also been reflected in his personality.
Yep. Especially now that he has more of an understanding of what his Titan is, I think.
So we saw a lot of characters again. We saw Pieck, we saw Gabi, but we also got a nice flashback of Reiner and Bertolt.
I was so happy about that. I love Bertolt. He's one of my favorites, and Sayama said in an interview a while ago that he'd be drawing him again soon. And we've gotten him, I think, once or twice since then. This was after Reiner's flashback wrapped up, in just like a panel or two, but now we got him to actually say something again, even if it was just one line. And I was just happy to see him.
I thought it was really cool seeing the things that they reported to Zeke, because we all kind of knew that this exchange of information happened, but we didn't really know. We don't know how much they told Zeke. We don't know how much Zeke actually understood about, oh man, a person named Eren Yeager has the founding Titan. Huh. Do you know about his father? And they're like, well, he's a doctor. And then you just see the realization cross Zeke's eyes, and it's just like, whoa. That was great.
Yeah, I actually have to read that part of the chapter again, because at first I thought Reiner and Bertolt hadn't made the connection. But obviously they did. And that's why they were careful in telling Zeke. Because they were, like, Reiner didn't even look him in the eye. He had Bertolt do the talking at the end, which is, I thought, very unexpected. Because normally Reiner always takes charge and Bertolt kind of just hangs in the back.
It's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
So.
One thing that was interesting is that we didn't see Ymir there, which Ymir was likely shipped back to Marley to be eaten around that point.
Or being held captive somewhere at that point.
Sure, something. Yeah,
She wouldn't be in on these talks.
that's true. It is private information, but it would have been a good instance to see her again. Maybe the flashback starts with us seeing her being loaded up onto the ship, and then we go to this conversation.
Yep.
But yeah, it was around that same time.
Yeah. I mean, we all know she like gave her life for Reiner and Bertolt, so in a way I think it's fitting she wasn't there. I don't know. I hope we'll get a flashback.
Yeah, I hope we see her again as well.
I'm just reading what Mom wrote.
Huh?
She's so upset about it that Ymir wasn't in it.
Oh yeah.
She says something isn't adding up, but I don't feel that way.
I think it all adds up.
Yeah.
I think Ymir was always sort of a minor character.
Yeah.
Like, I feel her arc has been completed, so...
I think if Ymir is relevant again, it'll probably be because of her memories in Porco. But I don't think it'll be hugely significant.
I agree with that.
Or because of like something that like Historia says that like reflects something Ymir taught her or something like that.
I can imagine Porco having a weird reaction the first time he sees Historia. I'm not saying he'll fall in love with her immediately or anything. I think he'd be kind of shook by what happened. Like, I think he would just be like, whoa, I know this person's important. Maybe he won't even know why.
Yeah. I wonder if he touches her, like, he gets this surge of memories from Ymir.
And Historia is of royal blood and the memories are connected, so, yeah.
I think I read something, I don't know if it was Reddit or somewhere else, but that the reason that Porco doesn't have Marcel's memories but does have Ymir's is because they share a person in common more recently, like Reiner. Like, he gets to relive what Reiner went through Ymir's eyes, but he hasn't been able to go far enough back to when Reiner was younger.
I think the further back, like, the harder it is. And I also think there's an element of, like, if there is that, like, gap, you can kind of, like, think of it like sort of a river flowing from the past to the present. And when there isn't a blood relation, that's like putting, like, a really, really restricting the flow of the water to become much smaller. And so that'll affect everyone down the line.
Well, the thing is, even Eren had a direct blood connection to Grisha, but even he only got flashes, right? Like, I think only when he touched Historia, he got, like, a real coherent, like, train of memories, I should say. I don't even know how to say it.
He got a long stream of memories when he was in the jail cell. Like, when Armin and Mikasa were saying he was talking to himself. Yeah, he was reliving those moments, and it felt like it was a long period of time over which that happened.
But I think he also had more context now to put everything together.
I think the context helps.
Yeah, that was after the first time that he touched her in the cave, so that kind of unlocked it.
That could also have helped. Yeah. So, but because it's still interesting, because, like, also, okay, Ymir was in between, but Marcel and Porco have a blood connection, and he doesn't have any of Marcel's memories at this point. So, Gabi was really eager to eat Reiner, though.
She was. It was really unsettling, like, how brainwashed she is.
She knew he was going to die anyways. Wanted him to die in a way that meant she wouldn't have to say goodbye for good,
Yeah, she said she wanted to understand him better through his memories. So, yeah, through the horde situation, the world that's been built up is a sweet gesture of wanting to kill him.
I get that that's sweet and that it's better than letting him die and have his memories go to no one, but at the same time, it's still really unsettling to me that she's like, yeah, you're gonna die and I'm gonna have your memories in me. And
that's gnarly propaganda for you. It's been glorified to her.
Yeah. I think he's also very close off to her. Like, she could tell that he never really opened up to her about what he'd been through. I think, she kind of begged him to talk more. And, I think this was one of her ways to kind of try and understand what was going on.
There was that whole dinner scene, too, with Karina, where Reiner was talking about his experiences on Paradise very vaguely. And you could tell Gabi was really kind of moved by that and maybe even a little bit confused because it did not jive with what she'd been told her whole life.
Exactly, yeah.
It's interesting because, like, she was talking to Reiner wanting to learn more. She wanted to learn more about what the world's really like and what his experiences were like. But then when she actually did find out, it didn't fit with her propaganda she'd been told, so she rejected it. So she was curious until it disagreed with her worldview, which I found to be interesting.
Yeah, it was like, does not compute.
Yep, she even said the words, like, they were all bad, right? Like, when Reiner was explaining his experiences. They were all bad, weren't they? They're all devils. And that kind of repeated itself this chapter.
Yeah, of course, her one line this chapter was just, oh, these devils must be bad, right? Like, Gabi, Shut up. Please evolve.
It's she's coming around. But they're devils. Why? I don't get it. And then it's her being like,
you can clearly see she's into.
It's her acknowledging that that reality isn't matching up with the propaganda. That's what she's saying this chapter.
Yeah, the wheels are definitely turning for her, but I feel like the first few chapters she was in, it's like, okay, obviously the wheels are going to eventually turn, so we waited for that. And now the wheels have been turning for like 5 chapters. It's like, okay, can we just see where this ends with Gabi?
Hush.
Yeah. She's still in the does not compute stage, kind of.
She's a lot less frustrating to me now, personally, though, because at least you could tell she's conflicted, whereas before she was kind of like rabid in her hatred for all of the Eldians.
Yeah. It was rage and anger and violence, and it's now just confusion and sadness.
I think is kind of interesting that Isayama has been doing in chapter 112 and 115 is like, I don't want to say he's been playing up the parallels between Eren and Gabi, because that's not what it is. He's been putting Gabi and Eren, it's twice now he put them in the same room in scenarios where she didn't necessarily need to be there. It seems like I don't really understand why she would have to be there during the EMA talk. She didn't really add anything to it, but it's kind of more like she's getting personal experience with this guy.
Kind of like Falco during Eren and Reiner's talk.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, like that. I think it's important to Isayama that Gabi and Falco get personal experience face to face with this Eren Yeager figure for whatever he has planned for them and whatever arcs he has planned for them. I'm not sure what that would be. I don't think it's. I'm not convinced it's for some like dramatic face-off between the two of them later on, but I don't know. I'm just not sure what it is.
Falco had interactions with Eren too, even before the reveal with Reiner. So that it's so. I feel like that's really important, but I can't figure out why. Not yet, anyway. But I feel like Gabi and Falco having these unique experiences and interactions with Eren, I think it's going to be important, but I can't connect it right now.
Hey, do we still want to talk about our predictions for next month?
I'd love to.
Do we have coherent predictions? Because I don't. I have no idea what to expect from 116.
Same. Was there... Normally we ask, or you guys, not me, I'm not included anymore, on the poll, what you want to see next month. Did we ask that?
We did.
Did you ask that?
I think we did. Let me pull it up.
Oh, yeah. You guys did. Let's see. Eren, Pieck, and Gabi with 68.7% of the votes. Hanji and Levi, 61.2%.
That first one makes sense with it being the big cliffhanger of it being what people want to see resolved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really surprised the Warriors weren't selected more often. Only 32.5% of people selected the Warriors is what they hope to see next chapter.
I don't think Levi's going to show up next chapter. I honestly
He's at the
don't.
bottom of the river.
No, I think he's going to show up eventually. I just don't think it's going to be next chapter. I think Isayama's going to leave us hanging.
I think that it makes sense, actually.
He is that much of an asshole, and I feel like there's more pressing matters at hand. I think chapter 116 is going to be things building up in Shiganshina. I think we're going to see the rest of the Warriors. I think action is going to start. At least one Titan is going to transform. And it's going to have a cliffhanger right before. It's going to be like this version's of chapter 100, except like less, thematically dramatic with like the whole like moving forward thing. It'll be more of just like everything starting to go down. Maybe chapter 74 is a better analogy.
Yeah. I feel like I can predict general story beats. Like, I mean, those are pretty easy to predict. Like, obviously, we're going to get Annie back. We're going to get Story back. I like to predict things like that. But I find it pretty impossible to predict exactly what the next chapter will cover because Isayama could do anything. Next chapter, I feel like the only safe bet is to resolve the cliffhanger we just set up with Eren, Pieck, and Gabi. But yeah, we could just not see Hanji and Levi, or we could have half the chapter focus on their escape. We could have the whole chapter be Warriors flashback and what they're doing, and they open Annie, or we could have Annie not show up for 4 months. It could be all about Historia and Eren flashbacks, yeah.
It depends on how much of the story is left, honestly.
Yeah, and how soon he wants to cover it.
If there's only 2 volumes left, then I mean, it gets more likely every chapter that we'll maybe see something of Annie or Historia. But if there's 4 volumes left, then who knows? We could be left hanging for a little while longer.
There's 6 volumes left.
I feel like we have to see Eren, Pieck, and Gabi.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to see more Pieck. Honestly, that's my main thing.
I just want to see Eren and Gabi interact. And Gabi was so hell bent on killing Eren, and then she finally gets to, be eye to eye with him, and then she just quivers and is like, "Oh my god, I'm so scared, my body can't move." So to see them actually talk, converse, that would be interesting.
I think Eren and Gabi are going to have an interesting connection. Like, I don't know, I think he's going to be very impactful on her.
I definitely agree.
I kind of think it's funny that he keeps calling her the brat who killed Sasha.
Yeah, that's hilarious, honestly.
I mean, rude, but
I think that's
funny.
how a lot of the fandom sees her, honestly.
That's true, yeah.
Every time we talk about I talk about Eren and Gabi's relationship, I keep thinking back to this one shot from 105 where Gabi's holding the gun and it's framed in this giant alleyway that leads up to the blimp up in the distance. And the shot composition is so similar to all of the anime posters of Eren seeing the colossal titan over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Isayama's doing something with Gabi, and I'm just at first I was just defaulting to, oh, she's gonna get Eren's titan after Eren dies, but then that's sounding less and less likely, and so now I'm just wondering what it will be.
Can I take a little bit of time for some tinfoil just for a second?
Oh, please! Yeah. I love tinfoil.
Eric can pass the hat to you.
Remember that "See You Later, Eren" panel?
Mm-hmm.
So there's I still kind of think that's Kiyomi. That's my gut feeling. I think that's basically anybody but Mikasa. But Mikasa's hair has Mikasa's never said those words to Eren when she was younger. The person in that panel is obviously not an adult. And I mean, the eyes being obscured from the person who sees the panel, I think is very telling, because that would be a dead giveaway that it is or isn't Mikasa either way. So from a storytelling perspective, I don't think it's Mikasa. I think it's probably Kiyomi talking to an Eren Kruger. But what if it's Gabi? I mean, the hair color's correct. The hair length is correct.
I saw a theory recently about that scene, and I did subscribe to it's Kiyomi for a while, but then getting to know Kiyomi more, she doesn't seem like the really important to some master plan type. She's just a greedy money lady. I saw a theory that the picture of Mikasa there isn't even relevant to the words, because I mean that's right before Eren wakes up, and then she's there looking like that girl does in the thing. So maybe that's just a frame of Mikasa, trying to wake Eren up, and then the words. There's no triangle on the bubble saying it's coming from her. They're just kind of there. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's from Eren's vision he has while he's sleeping. That we see in the anime, and that's Ymir Fritz talking, Eren said exactly what Zeke says this chapter. It felt like he was there for a long time, asleep or whatever. He was crying, so he maybe saw something maybe the future, and it was sad. And yeah, that was Ymir saying, "See you later, Eren," because she'll see him again when he sees his memories, maybe, or at the end of the story. And extrapolated on that, I saw someone saying that the two people who have almost the same faces right now in the manga, and also are the two people with mysterious motives that are being held back, are Eren and Historia. And we know that they can touch and get memories. So perhaps they access the memories that Eren saw in the beginning of the story, and they were sad enough to make Eren cry then, and they're depressing enough to make them look the way they are now, and they're also monumental enough to make them take the actions they're taking.
So here's something that I've been thinking about. I honestly don't like the idea of backwards time travel in this manga. I think it adds too many variables. And just turning into a time travel story this late can make it kind of messy. And I've been sort of looking to Occam's razor it. And I think that first scene was from the PATHSm dimension. That's what I think. I think that was Ymir Fritz or something else from the PATHSm dimension. And I think the thing at the end of 89 wasn't... I don't think that's exactly how it happened in reality. I think that was an altering of the message to talk directly to Eren. It's basically the that memory was retooled, possibly by Ymir Fritz, to speak to Eren.
That panel.
Yeah, and I thought for a while it can't be that important if they took it out of the anime. If it was really important to the end, they'd have to leave it in there. But also, if it's a whole mystery of who's speaking there, then obviously they couldn't include that since I need a voice actor, so that's why they edited it a bit.
Especially if it's not Mikasa.
Oh, that makes so much sense, actually. That makes perfect sense.
So, shall we take a break? Take our tinfoiled hats off?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, let's take a short break. Hi everyone, welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the music during the break. Let's talk about some news that came out this month about Attack on Titan. Do we first want to talk about Season 3, Part 2?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so I think the biggest news was that we are only getting 10 episodes instead of 12.
Ooh.
Love it.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about that?
I am a bit of a nerd when it comes to AOT episode layout, so I know Eric is too, so he can chime in.
That is how our friendship started, actually.
Yeah, I finally met someone else who spends hours trying to predict how the manga will transition into anime episodes. There's not that many of us.
Soulmates.
Okay. So you take it away then.
Yeah, so Season 3 being 12 episodes, like one would expect, trying to do an episode layout for that, I always found kind of difficult. I kind of had to stretch out a bit. Like some of my older drafts had moved some of the stuff from the Marley arc and added some anime original Marley arc stuff, just like with Reiner and them getting back to Marley, just because I needed something to fill the slot there. So RTS is 20 chapters, but it's not very comparable to Uprising because obviously Uprising's a lot denser. And so the kind of cuts they did for Uprising for the first half of Season 3 wouldn't be necessary for the action-heavy RTS. They can pretty consistently go 2 chapters an episode for like the first half of the series. So let me just quick summarize what I think the episodes will be like. So episode 1 is chapter 73 and 74, just getting to Shiganshina and Reiner and Bert come out. Episode 2 is where the Thunder Spheres and the Reiner fight happens. Episode 3 is the world they saw with the flashbacks from RBA and Zeke, and then Bertholdt's confrontation with Armin. Episode 4 is Perfect Game, that covers Zeke's throwing and the Erwin speech to everyone and charging out for that. Episode 5 would cover Armin sacrificing himself and Levi attacking Zeke. Episode 6, I had to stretch out a bit. It's basically the symbol. You extend Armin's flashback a little bit of being bullied, just like we just saw him sacrifice himself, now we see him get beat up. It'd be kind of hard to watch. And then that ends on the cliffhanger of like Levi making the choice, and so that breeds discussion of who fans would choose. And the next episode covers the basement as well as the outcome of symbol. And then Grisha's flashbacks from chapter 86 get a whole episode to themselves since they're pretty dense. And then I think the tightest fit I did, the only place there might be cuts, are the last 2 episodes, which you could draw out more, but with just the way story structure work, I wouldn't want to have the climax of RTS in the basement, then have like 5 episodes after that of just info dropping. And 87 and 88 are really dense and have a lot of text in them, but they're all pretty much text from the same scene, and so I feel they could work together well as an episode. And the last episode is just chapter 90 and 89 with Ymir's flashbacks cut down a bit because we already saw them in the anime.
One thing that I also noticed too is, like, for me, Bystander and The Night to Retake the Wall are both included in the first half of Season 3. But at least, like, as a manga reader, I always considered those as closer to being part of RTS than Uprising. So I feel like
That's how I felt about 72, The Night to Retake the Wall, not how I felt about Bystander, because that was sort of the conclusion to Eren's character arc about being a normal person, which is a big focus in Uprising.
well,
I think they were like the transition chapters.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair.
but by including them in the first half of Season 3, it really set things up so that Season 3, the first episode, we're gonna be going right into it. We're not going to have a whole lot of build up, but we're going to go right into the action. And there's not going to be a couple episodes of, okay, when are things going to get started? We're just going to be in it.
And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that they cut it down to 10 episodes because, of course, the first half will be action-packed and that will move by very quickly. So then we have the Serum Bowl drama, and after that we have the basement reveal, and then the conclusion of the arc. So 10 episodes seems like a good part to cover Return to Sheena. The only thing that I personally wish is that they moved the 2 episodes they have left back to the first arc, to Uprising.
That's
and kind of padded that out a bit. Yeah. Because like the first 2 episodes, I still have whiplash from those. Like everything went so quickly. I had no time, like no idea of time and space in those. It also affected a lot of the rest of the season, how things played out. I wish I had taken a little bit more time with those first 2 episodes.
The night of the battle to retake the wall, like that could have been the first episode of the second half. That could have been. And I think that would have been fine. And that would have given them a little bit more room to extend those scenes that in the beginning of Uprising that were really weird. Because I didn't really like this season at all in the beginning. Like I thought it was really rushed, and I thought some of the choices they made were questionable.
Well, the whole point of the Uprising arc changes, it wasn't to make room for 71 and 72. It was to not be slow and to speed up a part that Isayama personally felt was slow and could have been done better. In order to keep the audience attention. Even if you
I agree with reading the manga, it moved too slow. I agree with that. But again, there's a middle ground. And then they were like, no, we're going to go right past that point and make everything go by far too quickly.
I'm kind of in the middle here because I feel that month to month the manga definitely went too slow. But when I was catching up, I didn't feel it. And an anime being week to week, I feel they could have had 2 weeks without major action and people could have handled it. And so I feel for the manga, Isayama's concerns were true, but for the anime, it wouldn't have been a problem to directly adapt. But that said, that the adaptation they did, I didn't have a huge problem with. I thought it worked out fine.
It was just the first couple episodes for me that I had issue with.
Yeah, same.
I can see that.
How I personally
that
feel
makes sense.
Is that this probably would have been a better experience as an anime only than if they adapted it faithfully. But as far as like, getting the best experience about like the full story and all the themes and stuff, like I feel the anime was better paced and more exciting and that kind of thing. But I think there was better writing to the manga. Though all things considered, the way they managed to like piece things together in the anime was kind of impressive. Like episode 2 in particular, how they like put Armin's speech about not being good people anymore after he killed the guy made so much sense. And
but
like
at the same time, they made it seem a whole lot less serious too with some of the other choices they made, like with Jean, Connie, and Sasha doing that thing on the wagon where they're screaming and being all weird. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one I had a problem with because in the manga that action scene was kind of rushed through. We just kind of saw that it happened, and I was
but
really
it was
hoping
darker
that.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. It was like their first kills, and he was like, you attack people who were just servants in the mansion or whatever. I feel like they should have had that attack scene. They could have expanded that more, and then they made it shorter and less serious. So that was a change I didn't love.
What I hated about that is that there used to be a purpose to that scene because that they suppressed the interior military police, and as a result, the interior military police weren't able to fight against the coup. But now Zackley's men just did that, so there was no point to anything that Levi, Marlowe, Hitch, or any of them did in that first third of season 3.
I never got how Marlowe, when Hanji says all of our choices led to this victory, Marlowe and Hanji didn't really do anything. Levi, in episode 2 or 3, they said, all right, let's head to Rod's estate. That's probably where they're at. And then on the way, they met Hitch, and then they attacked this guy, and then they're like, all right, now let's continue going to Rod's estate. They didn't get any information out of him other than Kenny's last name, which didn't lead to their victory.
It made more sense in the manga.
Yeah. But yeah, for the 10-episode RTS, I've seen a lot of negativity online because people were expecting 12, and on the surface, more is better, so a lot of people were upset about it. And there were some good memes out of it, but I'd laugh at the memes, but then I'd feel the need to comment, it's actually better that it's 10 because it'll make a better season overall.
I think it probably will. I mean, it's better than having 2 episodes of filler.
Yeah, I'd rather have a quality 10 episodes.
Well, I do have. I always thought that it would have been kind of cool if between Uprising and like on the way to Shiganshina, there was like a chapter or two where it is them like maybe using the scouting formation to like try to go and like them fighting Titans and like kind of showing them having grown as members of the Survey Corps, and it kind of reflects how they were newbies during like the female Titan arc, and now they're a little bit better at it.
Sure, but they also want to go at night to avoid Titans.
Yeah, I mean, it makes more sense, but like ECM also could have like written it in a way that's different. I don't know. That's just something I feel would have been kind of cool, and I think that's one of the few things that's kind of missing, like a moment like that. I agree overall with Puppet. I'm not sure how much I agree with like the specifics of his like layout, but like me and him can argue that in DMs. It's not important. I think it'll be much better for pacing. We'll get a lot of double chapters, double chapter episodes, and then things will be a little bit better paced.
Yeah, I think for the fighting scene chapters, it's necessary to condense it a little bit in the anime.
Before this announcement, my episode layout actually had it at 9 episodes, so I actually had to add one.
Yeah, that was difficult. 9 was just a little bit too few, so 10's perfect.
Yeah, looking back, this one's a lot better than 9, and I think they made the good choice with 10.
Well, now that we're all in agreement about how great 10 episodes is, maybe let's move on to the next topic, which is the expansion for the Attack on Titan 2 game, which is all of Season 3 is going to be added.
Yeah, now I'm just upset that I bought Attack on Titan 2 and not this new one.
Well, it is
maybe
also,
if they have DLC.
I was concerned about that for a moment as well, but it is also available as DLC if you have 2. So you can buy it for $60 and get 2 in this, or... Yeah.
Is it $60? Oh, it's 70 euros here.
Yeah, $60.
$60 for DLC?
No, it's $60.
No, the base game.
Yeah, if you don't have 2, you might buy the base game, which is a physical copy, which is then 2 plus this, which is then 60. So it's the same price as 2 when it came out, just plus the DLC. Or if you already have 2, you can grab the DLC.
I bought 2 for less than 60. So, how much is the DLC?
Wait, hold up. So
they haven't set a price. I'd guess like probably 15, 20 bucks.
15, 20. All right.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because I've really enjoyed the Attack on Titan games, and I would hoped they'd continue it, but I wasn't sure if they would, just based on kind of the way 2 went.
Yeah.
And also the fact that the Uprising doesn't have a ton of opportunity for Titan action. But
apparently there's like human versus human. Yeah. Also, shout outs to them just spoiling Season 3 for the Part 2 for the anime onlys.
I mean, people were complaining about that, but I think they kept the spoiling to a minimum.
I agree with Luna.
At least from what I saw from the trailer.
It's one of those things where as a manga reader, we're like, they're putting these scenes that they haven't seen yet here, so it equals spoils, but they didn't show Erwin dying or anything. Sure, they kind of foreshadowed it with rocks coming towards them, but that happens in the official Season 3 trailer as well. So I feel like, sure, they showed scenes, but without the context or the big reveals and deaths and stuff, I feel like it was fine. To me, it got me hyped up, like, oh, these are my favorite scenes, I can't wait to play through them.
Yep.
And of course, the best part of all of this is the new playable characters, including my boy, Floch Forster. I can finally play as him.
I wonder if Zeke's going to use 3DMG. Like, he'd have to, right?
They might.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they do add, like, games-specific things. Like, I think Zeke was already in the first game, right? As the Beast.
You could play as the Beast Titan in, like, a mission or 2, but he wasn't, like, part of the human roster, yeah.
Yeah, and then for the base game for 2, they added an alternative ending where Zeke, Bertolt, and Reiner go back to rescue Annie.
Yeah.
So
apparently
they could add something new to 3.
Came up with like the scenario for that.
I thought that was clever. I thought that was a fun thing. Like, what if Reiner won that fight and they went this way?
I think that's the idea, and it's also just like totally like the kind of thing that someone who's watched seasons 1 and 2 would think like the next step would be.
Yeah, I'm looking on Steam. It's still 70 euros for me, the base game.
Oof.
It's really expensive. That's why I haven't played it yet, because it's just too expensive on PC. I think you can get it cheaper on PlayStation and Xbox.
I'm the chum who bought the first game, the second game, and I'm going to get this because the second game already includes season 1 and 2, so I paid for season 1 and season 2, and I'm going to pay for season 3. Versus when this comes out, you can just buy this for the price of a game, and then you get all 3 seasons playable.
That would be better. Is it also out on Switch?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've got it on Switch.
I
That's
got
why
it
I
on
have
Switch
it
as
too.
well.
Or
I haven't
Attack
played
on
it yet,
Titan
though.
2 is. I'm not sure if the DLC will be. I hope it will be. It better be.
I want to talk for 10 more minutes about how I can play as Floch, but we can move on.
I told Mom Taku I would go and buy it and stream it, and she would have to watch Erwin die over and over and over
Oh
again.
my god. If we can at one point like play as aged up Gabi and Falco,
I mean, with the character creator,
I mean, you can make your
You
own
can do that.
characters.
I would buy that. It's not the
So-
same. It's not the same.
Okay, let's go to questions from our listeners. User Kiza100 from Reddit asks, where do you think Reiner and Porco are now, and what is their plan?
I think we asked on the poll who people think is with Pieck.
We did.
So it seems like the majority of respondents at almost 65% think that Reiner is with her, and just a little below that, 63% think Gaillard is. And then Colt was another semi-popular option with a third of the fandom thinking he's there. And Magath and no one got about 20% each. So
Yeah, there's 20% of the people who think that no one is with Pieck and she's a lone operator, which I don't necessarily think, but that's really interesting to consider.
yeah.
It's true.
Or maybe they mean that like Reiner and Porco are elsewhere and they're getting like they're
digging a
off getting-
tunnel to Annie.
Yeah, my theory is that Reiner and Porco are getting Annie, because Reiner is the one that knows Annie best, so he should be there, and Porco's the one with the Jaw Titan, which they just found out can open crystals.
That makes sense.
I'm just dying at the 30 people who think Ymir's still alive.
Oh yeah, I forgot Ymir with an option there.
I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking, but
Those are meme responses, I'm guessing.
I'm hoping. But I'm sure some of them truly think she's still alive.
Oh, Amir hasn't been relevant in years. Just forget about her.
No, she's a good girl. I like her. But she's dead.
She's so
Okay.
dead.
I agree.
The
Amazing.
people saying Magath is with them is interesting, because I've always thought that, okay, if Magath isn't with them, then that almost makes me certain that something is going to happen after this fight, or like after whatever's happening on Paradise, because Magath needs to be relevant to the story. At some point, he's had too much setup to just kind of fade to the background after the Marley arc. But if Magath is with them, then, that kind of, shoots that theory in the foot. And it's just like wondering, but what would he be doing with them? Is he like, maybe he's acting as a commander? I don't know. But it would be interesting to see Magath on Paradise.
Would be amazing.
We have seen him on Paradise technically in chapter 95 when he drops them off.
True.
Yeah, he shoots Eren with another gun when he's in Titan form. I'm helping!
What are you doing, Jaeger?
That would be amazing.
Magath is effectively in charge of the military now, though, right, Marley?
He's in
Yes.
charge of the whole world's military.
Which means it seems kind of crazy for me, like, if he's there right now. I feel like
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
feel
what
like you
I'm
wouldn't
thinking.
abandon that, yeah.
someone's got to stay there to keep things in line.
Because if you consider it from Magath's point of view, this isn't like their only one last shot. This is a precautionary measure because Reiner raised a very good concern.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
not
just
the
worried
plan
about
A.
Colt. If Colt's there, like, he doesn't have any shifter powers.
If Colt's there, I feel like he's eating Zeke.
I agree, yeah.
Or dying. One of the two.
My money is on dying at this point.
I'm like, it
If
could
he's
go
there.
either way. I'm not sure where it is.
I feel like there's people who should inherit Titans, like it was set up in the Marley arc, and I was convinced they would, like Colt and Gabi Falco. But the fact that, again, I feel like this is the final arc, it'd be weird for everyone to inherit a Titan and then they use it in one battle and the manga's done. So I can kind of see where Eric's coming from there.
That's one of the reasons I feel like it's not final, because there are all these characters who doesn't feel like their story's about to wrap up.
Mhm.
Do we want to discuss the other part of the questions where Kiza asks about the 13-year lifespan and if the warrior's parents are aware of it? Or if Annie is still alive in the crystal?
I feel like Annie's definitely alive in the crystal. It'd be weird if they
Yeah.
open it and then she's just dead.
And I think the warrior's parents are currently aware of the 13-year lifespan. I don't think it was necessarily common knowledge when Zeke was signed up to be a warrior, though.
That was the first generation of
Yep.
warrior cadets.
I feel like it's common knowledge because it's just something that I feel like people could put together. Like, oh, why do they change? We have this great warrior who's like the best Titan shifter of all time. Why are you giving him to some kid? In just 13 years, I feel like people can piece it together. It ties in with Ymir's backstory, which is public knowledge. So
I'm going through another person's questions. So, Kyojin of Bravos from Tumblr asks, please discuss Zeke and his Zesus Christ symbolism. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Is he the savior? He did get reborn, basically. So,
I think my personal take is that there are a lot of resurrection myths, and it's just very much a common thing among a lot of cultures, and so it is a very resonant story with a lot of people. I think Isayama is the kind of person who takes ideas and concepts from a lot of different places, but none of them are necessarily direct parallels. He might just like the idea and think it works and adds to the world and adds to the aesthetic of Attack on Titan, but I don't necessarily think that Zeke is meant to be a commentary on Jesus Christ or whatever. Or he's supposed to be.
I think it's more about the fact that he looked like he died in one of the panels, then got reborn, and also the fact that he's more of a martyr of sorts.
Yeah, and he kind of looks like some classic interpretations of Jesus with the beard and all that. One thing we briefly touched on earlier was Yelena calling him God, and she's done that a lot of times now. That's really unsettling to me. Like, I can stand with Floch, like, basically worshipping Eren, just like being on his side, but just randomly calling someone God when they're clearly just a human being, that shouts like cultish, brainwashed, and it really disturbs me personally.
I agree that it was really unsettling to me as well, and I think I actually rated Zeke lower this chapter. Like, my opinion of him has changed negatively for that reason.
Personally, I always thought one of the most interesting things about Attack on Titan's world is the very visceral, and it is like if you take a look at the stuff with, because when we think about like divinity and like divine miracles and stuff with that, like that, we think of it in a very vague way. That just like magic light shines from the heaven and something happens. But in Attack on Titan, if you think of Titans as like divine godly beings or something like that, it's very interesting, this very visceral physical take on that kind of idea, and it does show like resurrection, it does show like divine miracles with the intervention of Ymir, it shows all these crazy supernatural phenomenon, but in this way, like with these consistent rules that's like physical, kind of ugly almost. I think that's a fascinating take on this kind of thing personally, and it's one of the reasons I consider Attack on Titan's world building to be so impactful.
Yeah, some of the earliest world building in Attack on Titan is the fact that there's a group of people who worships the walls and thinks that they came from the gods. I mean, that's in episode 1. There's a priest shouting that, and then of course it becomes more of a plot point later. But the themes like that have always been in the story.
Yeah, and I was thinking just like, just looking at like Annie, doing her thing in the female Titan arc, like, that's a god. And like maybe if you're like, we're looking at, Greek mythology and, talking about like Poseidon doing this or that, near humans or whatever, like maybe that is kind of how some people imagined a god would be,
Mm-hmm.
And for our final question, and I'm sorry, JSK 2003, we just had to pick one of your long list of questions. We went with the one about Pixis. Pixis picked up that Yelena wants to save the whole world from Marley, but realized that the Zeke Yomi plan of threatening to rumble only serves to save the island. And he then figures out that Yelena must have planned something beyond that. Do you think Pixis will agree with euthanasia? He was always someone who valued the life of humanity over the life of the individual.
Oh, this is interesting, because this was like the crux of my belief in the Yelena and Pixis team up, and why Pixis, because I was thinking that like Yelena, I actually thought that she wasn't with Zeke, but she was actually with Marley and was like a turncoat like against Zeke and was playing him like Zeke played Marley, which isn't true in the end, but unless she's a really, really good actor. But I did cite that whole thing with Pixis's philosophy as a reason why he might end up teaming up with Yelena or something else. I'm not really sure where that will go. I'm not sure if Pixis would agree with the euthanasia plan, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe he would. I think that could actually be genuinely interesting, and I always thought that was an interesting part of his character to explore in this new area. So I'm going to give a hard maybe on that.
Yeah, Pixis has shown a lot of care for the value of human life, but at the same time, if you're putting all the lives on Paradise against the lives of everyone else in the world, is he going to go with this? Is he going to prefer the side where the most lives are saved, or is he going to stick to the people who he knows and interacts with, and the people that to him were the only people in existence until just 4 years ago? I don't know. Like, it's interesting to me.
I don't know where I stand on this one. All I know is that Pixis won't survive this story.
You don't think so?
He's totally turning into a Titan.
No, I don't think he will.
I hope he doesn't turn into a Titan, but that's me wishful thinking, probably.
I hope he doesn't, but I think he will, yeah.
I think everyone with the wine is getting Titanized, and only Falco's getting saved when he eats Reiner.
That's the camp I'm in.
Reiner. Can't believe you said Reiner. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I watched the dub. What of it?
Yeah, I like the
What
dub.
of it?
I didn't.
Yeah, the dub's good. I like the dub.
I don't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I like the dub, but I don't like a lot of the pronunciations of the names.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, I think that was it for questions from our listeners. I want to thank you all first for joining us, especially because it was kind of a messy podcast to arrange, but thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us again.
Thank you.
Let me know if you ever want me on again. I'd be happy to.
I'll have to think hard on that. I'm just joking.
They're all mean. They've been bullying me all day.
You handle it very well, though. You take it like a champ.
That might not be a good thing.
Next time, let's have a proper collaboration with Momtaku and Thar.
Yeah.
Thank you for stepping in for Momtaku, Reiku. It was really nice having you as my co-host this time.
It's a lot of fun.
Thank you for stepping in for Darth, Puppet.
You're welcome.
There's an obligatory line here about we have to say how much we miss Momtaku, but
I do miss Montaku. I'm glad they briefly popped in.
If you want to support our podcast, you can do so by liking, leaving a comment, or subscribing to it. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify. We're also on Stitch and, of course, on iTunes. And if you can share our podcast with your family or friends, we would also greatly appreciate that. Aside from that, we also have a Ko-fi and a Patreon. And last month, we got our very first Patreon. So thank you to Kenny H for your support. One of the perks is that you can get early... Kenny! That's how I welcomed him, with a gift from that. So if you pledge enough money to our Patreon, you can join our Discord and you get early access to our podcasts. So if that's something you want, then please consider supporting us there. As always, thank you for offering your hearts and your ears, and see you next month. Bye!
Bye.
Bye!
Bye.
Hold on, I need to kick someone Hold on.
Momtaku just got here.
You need to go to bed.
She's allowed to listen.
No, she needs to nap. She really does.
I just want to listen for a minute. I just finished doing all my chores and I just want to sit and listen. Is that okay?
Did you take a shower?
I have not showered.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye, Mom.
I'm not leaving.
Nice.
I'm just going to listen for a few minutes. Go ahead.
I can't even kick you because you're...
No, you
Can I?
can't. I'm the boss.
No!
Oh, man.
Oh, that's
She's got them admin privileges.
I am
Yes.
the admin.